10 Best Celebrity Cameos on Pawn Stars. Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Screeny. Being an A-list star with millions of bucks at your disposal doesn't mean you're immune to the charm of pawn shops. Rick Harrison knows this best since he met a bunch of Hollywood big shots at his store, and it's been a blast every time. Let's take a look at the 10 best celebrity cameos on Pawn Stars. Before we remind you of some of the most epic moments in Pawn Stars history, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos every day. Number 10. Steve Carell.
$5,500.
$3,200, that's the deal.
$6,000.
Steve Carell is one of those people who makes each project he appears in 100% more hilarious, and he managed to do the same with Pawn Stars, and he managed to do the same thing with Pawn Stars. 2013 was a busy year for the Office star, but he still found some time to make a stop at the world-famous Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. He was in town promoting his new movie, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, and making a cameo on this Las Vegas-based show seems like a good idea. The World War II diver's knife caught his attention, and Rick was more than happy to let him take a look. Harrison ended up making the sale, and in the mini interview at the end, Carell joked about coming back to the store tomorrow and trying to sell a couple of items, including the suede jacket he was wearing at the time. The old man and Big Hoss staring at the camera from the distance like they're in the office. Number 9. BRET Michaels.
Come in. How are you doing?
I don't know why, but a girl has never reacted like that to me.
When Rachel showed up at the world-famous Gold and Silver Pawn Shop with Poison Platinum album signed by BRET Michaels, Rick could tell it was worth a lot of money, but he wasn't sure just how much. The seller explains the album was a gift from her husband, who knew she's a huge Poison fan. She wanted to sell it so they could do something special for their 20th wedding anniversary. But Rick wanted to get an expert opinion before cashing out thousands of dollars she asked for. The expert he contacted was none other than BRET Michaels, and Rachel was head over heels after seeing him in the flesh. Rick managed to talk her into selling the album for $2,500, and the woman couldn't say no to that after he helped her meet her idol. Michaels explains the record in question was made specifically for charitable events, and Rick was so kind to give the album to BRET so he could auction it again and earn money for his charity. Number 8. Stan Lee.
I had a quick question for you, if you don't mind.
I'll give you a quick answer.
All right, I have this comic strip here.
Wow. Oh, this brings back memories.
Marvel fans are used to seeing Stan Lee pop up in their favorite Marvel movies on a regular basis, but his cameo on Pawn Stars is one they didn't see coming. It all started with a random guy coming to the store with a vintage Spider-Man comic strip in hand. He was greeted by Chum Lee, who was impressed after seeing the signatures of Marvel icons Stan Lee and John Romita, but couldn't know for sure if they were legit or not. Chum decided to consult the expert, but it wasn't one of their regulars. He asked the seller to join him in the queue and waits to meet none other than Stan Lee. The former chairman of Marvel Comics confirmed Romita and him created and signed this amazing comic strip. The two men had a nice little chat with the legend before going back to the store, where Chum Lee cashed out $5,000 he promised to the guy if the comic was the real deal. Number 7. Roger Daltrey.
Pleased to meet you.
Right as I'm getting the hang of becoming a rock star, Roger Daltrey walks in the room, and I forget everything.
It's no secret Rick Harrison is a big fan of rock and roll, and he had a chance to meet a bunch of music legends in his day. After the success of Pawn Stars put him on the map, some of the most popular bands out there started inviting him to their concerts, and he was more than happy to accept the invitation. Hanging out with him didn't prepare him for meeting the living legend Roger Daltrey. Rick completely lost it when they came face to face with the Who frontman. Their encounter took place at the Rock and Roll Fantasy fantasy camp, where the musical director Kip Winger tried to help Rick find his inner rock star. The pawn shop owner felt super weird as Kip tried to teach him a couple of breathing techniques to get his voice in singing shape. The duo started practicing the song My Generation by The Who, but they weren't alone for too long. The lead singer of the legendary bands joined them after a while, and Rick was so nervous that he's forgotten every word of every song he's ever memorized. Everything worked out in the end, and he had a blast rocking with Roger Daltrey. Number 6. Katie Couric.
It's a great piece of advice.
We ought never do wrong when anyone is looking.
Katie Couric is one of those people who seem too sophisticated to roam around pawn shops, but she just happened to be a history enthusiast who's always looking for great items to add to her collection. The famous journalist is also a big fan of Mark Twain, and she just couldn't resist buying a signed piece by the famous author when she arrived at the Gold and Silver pawn shop. Big Hoss could tell she looked familiar, but couldn't guess her name right until his dad intervened. Rick recognized her right away and explains that Twain used to scratch little things on a card, sign them, and give them out. The item that caught Couric's eye contained a great piece of advice, saying, "We ought never do wrong when anyone is looking." The daytime talk show found the quote really funny and expressed interest in buying the piece. Rick went overboard and asked her to cash out $20,000, but they eventually settled for $12,000 and high-fived after the sale was finalized. Number 5. Matt Kenseth.
Of course Matt beat us. But I beat COURIC. That means I won the bet.
There's definitely something wrong with my go-kart.
Rick Harrison is a big fan of kart racing, and he shares that passion with his son Corey. So it didn't come as a surprise when he took him to Fast Lap to show him who's boss. Rick was here to prove to his son he's the best racer in the building. But this was far from the truth. When the two men walked inside, they crossed paths with Matt Kenseth, who gave them a run for their money. Unlike the Harrisons, Kenseth wasn't a rookie, and he earned millions of dollars as a professional stock car racing driver. Rick was so starstruck after seeing him that he couldn't help but ask Kenseth to race him and Corey. Winning the race against the Harrisons was a piece of cake for this professional driver, but they didn't seem to mind it. Rick got exactly what he wanted and kicked Corey's ass by the end of the race, and got to meet Matt Kenseth in the process. Number 4. Def Leppard.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the ones I did.
Come back to roast.
Okay.
When one woman showed up to the Gold and Silver pawn shop holding a guitar that once belonged to Phil Collen of Def Leppard, Rick couldn't contain his excitement. This colorful, one-of-a-kind instrument immediately caught his eye, but he needed some proof it really belongs to Phil. He called in the guitar expert Jesse Amoroso to ask for his opinion, and he confirms the guitar is worth a fortune. Amoroso said he knows someone who could tell him a bit more about the artwork on the guitar, and gave his buddy a call. Joe Elliott and Phil Collen of Def Leppard showed up at the store, shocking everyone who was there at the time. The guitarist of the popular bands confirmed he spray painted the instrument and made the great moment even better by playing the guitar to check if it still works. Rick was so impressed by the whole thing that he agreed to cash out $8,500 for this amazing custom-made instrument. Number 3. George Stephanopoulos.
Right here at the bottom of the page, you see the A. That makes it a first edition.
I think the book is valuable because it still has a dust cover.
Former White House communications director isn't one of the people you'd expect to see at your pawn shop, but it turns out George Stephanopoulos is a huge fan of them. The Good Morning America host explained he likes visiting pawn shops and flea markets every time he travels with his wife, in hope that they'll find cool items to add to their collection. A first edition of Ernest Hemingway's novel For Whom the Bell Tolls caught his eye when he visited the Gold and Silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, and it was obvious he desperately wanted it. Big Hoss and Chum Lee made complete idiots of themselves by admitting they had never read the book in high school. To make things even worse, they had no idea who Stephanopoulos was, but Rick recognized him on the spot. He said it's cool to have a guy like him walking around the store and agreed to sell him the book for $675. The celebrated journalist couldn't wait to get back home and put it on the shelf in his family room for everyone to see. Number 2. Dana White.
Hey, what's up, man? How are you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm building this weapons room in my house, and what I'm really looking for today is a sword.
Rick Harrison is a huge fan of Japanese katanas, and he's found his match in Dana White. The UFC president visited the Gold and Silver pawn shop looking for a couple of cool items to decorate his weapons room, and found everything he was looking for. Chumlee even offered him the biggest gem in Rick's collection, his favorite sword that spent 2 years being restored in Japan. The big boss couldn't wait to be reunited with his beloved katana and explicitly told everyone it's not for sale, but Dana made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. The UFC president wanted the sword so badly because he knew how much it meant to Rick and was ready to cash out $30,000. White also offered the same amount of money for a bunch of other swords because they seemed like the perfect decorations for his weapons room. Rick was furious after learning Chum had sold his favorite sword, but had a change of heart once he'd heard who'd made the purchase. He even got Dana into buying another traditional katana worth $9,000. Number 1. Bob Dylan.
Anything else you want me to say?
Just make it out to Chumlee, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Seeing people waltzing into a pawn shop to sell vintage records of famous artists is nothing unusual, and the viewers didn't expect to see anything spectacular when a guy tried to make money off an old Bob Dylan vinyl. He walked away with $50, but Rick came up with an idea to make it worth much more and sent Chumlee on a mission. Bob Dylan was in town, and getting his signature would up the price of this precious item. A simple task turned into a total train wreck since Chum was the one in charge. He managed to track down the Nobel Prize-winning artist, but things didn't go as planned. When Dylan asked him who he should make it out to, Chumlee asked to write his name, making the album completely useless. Rick was so pissed off that he lets him keep the record, because no one in their right mind would want to buy it anymore. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing content, and don't forget to check out one of the other 2 videos on your screen.